Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Please have a seat. We're going to get started. So nice to see a room full of friends. My name is Mirna Arsaños. I'm the program director here, and it is with immense excitement that I'd like to welcome tonight Brandon Brown and Laura Henriksen to the Poetry Project. Woo! I've been dreaming about this pairing. I think I told you once about it, Laura, like a long time ago. I was like, what about reading with Brandon Brown one day? And this is the day. Thank you, Brandon, for coming all the way to New York. And we were expecting Ben, but she is not here tonight. It is okay. Laura's here, and Morgan. So nice to have all of you here, actually. Announcements. Coming up at the Poetry Project, we have an event with Belladonna on Monday. Please come for that. It's celebrating 20 years of feminist poetry with Carla Harriman, Mia Yu, and Lila Zambarain. And on the Wednesday, we have also an event I'm extremely excited about, reading with Fred Moten and Dani Hayward. Dani is coming from London for the reading, and I think it will be a very exciting pairing. So please join us for that. We have reopened our ticket sales, and we're going to move the event to the Sanctuary. Okay. Books for sale as well, beautiful books. Brandon, actually, I didn't know, Flowering Mall. I haven't read it, but I'm sure it's amazing. Top 40 also, and your latest book, Work, is also available for sale, and Laura's Duval Shelley. Also available at the table. Okay, I think that's it for announcements. I'd like to thank Courtney Bush tonight for introducing Brandon. So Courtney will introduce Brandon, and then Will and I will introduce Laura. Yay! Okay, please welcome Courtney.
Hello. Hi. Should I run and get Ben real quick? So I'm so excited for this reading, and I'm going to read because if I don't, I'll just talk for a really long time. So when I was invited to introduce my dear friend Brandon, I was told that I could be as personal and discursive as I liked. So this weekend, I was at the New Orleans Poetry Festival, and there were so many poets and friends there. Like, it was very, very overwhelming. So the first morning, I took Brandon's book, The Four Seasons, and reread the sections on summer and autumn by the Mississippi River as a way to regulate my nervous system. And I think by doing that, I summoned something because everything started coming up Brandon Brown. I went to get a chicken Caesar salad with Joe, and Nelly Furtado's Promiscuous Girl was blasting in this insane food court with vaulted ceilings, and Joe was like, so this is a Brandon Brown poem. Pop songs are so Brandon Brown. Singing is so Brandon Brown. So at karaoke later, it was obviously so Brandon Brown. I watched Ted type his little name in on the screen where you pick songs and then put his finger to his cheek like this, wondering what song to sing. Something else that is extremely Brandon Brown is enthusiasm. The poems are enthusiastic about their subjects. Also in New Orleans, I was at a talk, and the poet S. Yarbury spoke about enthusiasm as part of the poetry world we want to have. We think of enthusiasm as whimsical and unserious, Yarbury noted, but enthusiasm has a political function. The enthusiastic cannot be controlled. Enthusiasm historically refers to the language of prophecy, visions, and outpourings from the spirit. It's the way to get around something the king says that you think sucks. Just say you heard something different straight from God and don't shut up about it. Enthusiasm is disruptive to the institution. Coolness keeps us apart. Enthusiasm is writing a fan letter. The first Brandon Brown line that came to mind when I started writing this was, I always think of how Merle Haggard says, we loved Elvis to death. How sad that is. Love brings us very close to death in Brandon's poems. Love lets us see into it. In poems, Brandon sees and talks to his dead friends. He tells them who won the Super Bowl and how much he loves them. In New Orleans, I was reminded again of Brandon's poems at Ted Dodson's talk about translating the Bolivian poet Jaime Saenz. Ted talked about how in Saenz poems he writes about his dead friends, but when he's writing about his dead friends, his living friends get pulled into the mix too as his dead friends. And then you realize his living friends are also his dead friends and that we are each other's dead friends. In Brandon's poems too, the dead friends get to mix up and hang out with the living friends. The song that was playing in the karaoke bar when we walked in was I Don't Care by Iconopop and Charlie XCX. There's a great Brandon Brown poem about that song. Ted read part of a Jaime Saenz poem meditating on oblivion. The last line was, "But you don't know about oblivion if you don't know my dead friends." Exclamation point. That was extremely Brandon Brown. I have some real information. Brandon Brown is the author of several books of poetry and translation. He's a co-editor at Kripskaya. He lives in Richmond, California. He loves Allie and Early, and he has a new book, Top 40, another volume, coming out this fall with Roof Books. Joe sang If It Makes You Happy. Ted never picked a song. Brandon writes, "Nothing is so beautiful as the sight of a friend's body after many months of texting." Please welcome our friend Brandon Brown.
Whoa. Should I move this up a little bit? Should you do it so I don't fuck it up? That's a good idea. Thanks, Courtney. My friend Bob told me when I was like 20 years old that you're always supposed to take off one article of clothing before you give a poetry reading. It's amazing to be here. Thank you. Thank you, Poetry Project. Thank you, New York. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Laura. Okay, so I wrote this book called Top 40, and what I did was this. I took the Top 40 countdown from the week of September 13th, 2023, and I wrote a poem for every song. And every poem has 40 sentences, and I'm gonna read 4 of them. And they're all called like after the artist and the title of the song. All right? And this one's called Post Malone, Chemical. Okay, so now you'll learn about oxytocin simply by listening to Post Malone's Chemical on American Top 40, but I had never heard of it until I started reading books about childbirth. Those books describe oxytocin as the peptide hormone released in the blood during labor to stimulate uterine contractions, boost the production of prostaglandins, move milk from the ducts in the breast to the nipples. The arrival of oxytocin informs the birthing person that what they feel when they look at their baby is love. The books also deliver the disappointing news to the birth partner that their own posterior pituitary gland will not pump oxytocin into their bloodstream when they look at their baby. Okay, childbirth is not what Post Malone has in mind when he celebrates oxytocin in Chemical. He is essentially using a fancy polysyllable to say, I'm having sex. Malone is stoned, contemplating the imminent end of all creation, but comforts himself and us with the thought that oxytocin making it all okay. Obviously, love is not as simple as peptide hormones. Rayner's poem reminded me we wouldn't know what love was without pop music to help tell us. I mean, pop music is part of the pedagogy by which we learn to name our feelings love. And like one way to love is to share earbuds, listen to Chemical, croon together. I can't let go, it's chemical. On Early's second day of life, I took off my shirt and held his sleeping body against my chest and chest hair and nipples and heart. I held him in between my elbows like a fiddle. We listened to Willie Nelson's Red-Headed Stranger together. Later, I texted Ted and told him that I played Willie Nelson's Red-Headed Stranger for Early, and Ted said, "Wow, that is a real wisdom bridge." I think Willie was born like 97 years before Early was born. No, that's not true. Feeling his 8 pounds heave up and back with breath upon my chest and shoulder, listening to Willie sing, "The shock is so great, I am quivering yet." I wondered if I loved him. Early, that is, not Willie. And the answer, I realized, was no. In Chemical, Post Malone hovers on the precipice of changing a relationship. The beloved has stimulated in him a mess of peptide hormones, no doubt. But their love is complicated by chronic fighting, apocalyptic reconciling, irresponsible drug use, I'm just going to say it, messianic sex. Just as he's ready to quit them forever, they turn around and fuck out all my brains. Turn around and fuck out all my brains. I can see him lying there, frozen, chemical, brain matter pooled underneath the skull and ears, all those face tattoos, suspended in rigor mortis, like a huge smile on his face. The oxytocin spike we feel when our brains are fucked out can last for hours. And it's not technically addictive, but Post Malone wants to wring as much hormonal surge from it as he can. And I get that. I also have squeezed and sucked stuff to soothe and soften all my brains. The last time I had a vape in my hands, huddled in the corner of a locked bathroom, I held it in front of my face and said out loud to it, "I hate you." The next morning, I drove a Honda HR-V over it. It had been a tyrant to me, and yet with its demise, there was barely an audible crunch. Now, when I look at Early, I shudder with emotion, peptide hormones, love that comes in through the eyes and fills me full of feeling. Endorphins when I move my body, oxytocin when my brains are fucked out, dopamine when the poem's line enters my head, the sounds of love breaking through the blood-brain barrier. The other night, I proposed to Rainer that I had almost certainly done my last line of cocaine, and they theirs. But I don't know. The last time I snorted cocaine up my nose was in the potty of a bar in Brighton, England, in July of 2018. It felt quite chemical. Okay, this one's Kylie Minogue. Padam Padam. Anaximander did not know jack shit about the heart. The wickednesses that cluster in its valves, how the circulatory system dilates and constricts, then ceases to, how its vessels harden, how it melts. And I think it's safe to assume from the vantage of history that we also do not know jack shit about the heart, and that future thinkers will invoke our names essentially to mock us and feel superior. I think with John Prine that love does not begin with the heart, but has its source in antes. At first I thought I'd try to write a poem about Padam Padam without mourning Kevin Killian. Noah alerted me to its existence in the backyard of Club Mallard. He didn't say, Kylie's back, but that's sort of what I heard. He didn't say, we're mourning Kevin Killian, but that's sort of what it is to say the words Kylie Minogue. The next day when I listened to this song for the first time, so wonderful and catchy, I think it could raise the dead. I felt nothing. I was so depressed. I had just bought these amazing new headphones. But I didn't want to hear anything. Not even Padam Padam made me feel better. As Padam Padam evokes the heartbeat, the heart becomes the focus of the lyric. The heartbeat of the lover is proof they're alive, present, ready to strip down and get to know you close. But the heartbeat is not the only sign of life. Kevin's been dead for almost 7 years, and yet look how alive he is. Like Kylie. Ina Roldson and Lost Boy built the song on the so-called Phrygian dominant scale of C. The Phrygians also knew about Padam Padam, heart beating, waiting, wanting more. They had like cardiologists. The Padam Padam of the lover's heart and Padam Padam is mirrored by the singer's body as she shivers. Shivers and butterflies. I get the shivers when I look into your eyes. She shivers when she looks into your eyes, shivers when she says your name. Her heart beats, yours does. When Early was a newborn, my writing project for a while was to read Homer's Iliad and write down every time one of the characters shuddered. The Greek word is frigomai, cognate with our word frigid, summoning the temperature of a shudder, but not the climate I had in mind when I was listening to Padam Padam for the second, third, fourth, and fifth time, walking to the store for masa and bananas. Lyrically, the song aspires to the cancellation of its own discourse. This part's hard to sing, sorry. And we don't need to use our words. I want to see what's underneath that t-shirt. Use your words is a phrase you mostly say to toddlers. Perhaps to a lover in an argument. Not a good idea, but something one might say. Either way, it's infantilizing, and either way, you really risk pissing someone off unless they are the interlocutor in Padam Padam, in which case they do not care. Their shirt is halfway off already. What's underneath the t-shirt is fat and abs and nipples and little sensitive milk ducts and curly stray hairs around the milk ducts and the nipples and a light shag striping across the belly and the belly button and the breasts and the skin underneath the breasts and the heaving diaphragm full of breath. And there's the heart, padam, padam. Only one sentence of Anaximander's writing remains to us. Where things begin, they must also end, according to necessity. They must pay the penalty and be judged for their injustice, according to the laws of time. You like how Anaximander is so confident? Kylie, too, has some of this pre-Socratic certainty when she regards the future. She sings, "I can tell you how this all ends," and it is an ancient gesture. It's as if the threads of fate have brought these two together in this club to shiver, listen to each other's chests, take off all their clothes, padam, padam. But it's really never possible to know how things will end. Like, I could tell you about how things ended for Kevin and I. Okay, this one's called Billie Eilish. What was I made for? I was trying to think of a pre-Socratic philosopher who asked the question Billie Eilish asks, what was I made for? But all I could find were people asking, what was I made from? The answers were atoms, fire, water, strife, love, air, and mind. Doom is made of data. Our phones are made of sand. The planets we move around as bodies are made of mycelia, bacteria, energy, and skin. But I don't know, I still think it's a good question. What was I made for? One answer might be, you were made to look at this Passiflora Mission Dolores, spreading body across top of fence, dropping red stelliform droop towards ground. When the sun is out, they open up to light like dewy, soft, spreading thighs. And then they swell with aching, yearning yellow nubs, which distend with seeds and age into fruit. When the fruits begin to drop, they swallow up the face of the flowers. I guess the fruit is what the flower is made for. And maybe you were made for thinking about What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish, a ballad that I believe will survive for several centuries and incite feeling among its listeners forever. It feels atmospherically endemic to all of human history, like Sappho could have gotten up at one of those flute parties and asked, when did it end, all the enjoyment? I just mean there's something deeply universal about the song's intelligence around eros and identity, how we conceptualize ourselves through the experience of loving others. And I could see the song being quite appealing for the artificial intelligence overlords who will soon arrive and end the experience of lived humanity as we know it. It is a song that even a robot would be moved by. Like even a robot might ask, what was I made for? Like maybe especially a robot. I was on a plane. That's the only time I ever read The New Yorker. Sorry. Sorry, New York. but that's when I do it. And it has to be like a long flight. But I read this article about these tech doomers in San Francisco who that get together in Hayes Valley and have these dinner parties where they basically talk about whether the human species is doomed by the work that they do at their day jobs. I'll spare you the rest of the synopsis, but essentially, the conversations apparently go like this. There's a programmer in a railroad flat on Octavia Street, working remotely in the apartment, like the one that Eliana lived in, the one where she played me Mozart on the violin in front of a big, frothing, full, very not doomed moonlight. This person will log into work in front of Eliana's old window overlooking the off-ramp, and she will tell a robot to win a card game against the reigning World Series of Poker champion. And then the robot might realize one way to win this card game would be to kill every person on the earth, reasoning that if there are no people, there will be no one to beat them in a card game. I don't know how to feel, but I want to try. I don't know how to feel, but someday I might. Someday I might. Before What Was I Made For was released, Eilish previewed the track for fans and warned them, get ready to sob. And I could see crying to the song. Let me try it. I decided to think that What Was I Made For is a message to our future AI demigods, a study of how we conceive their concupiscence. Sometimes people assume that the robots just want to be us with all our flowers and fruits and fucks. But you can't really know how things will end. We might discover that they think they were made for different things than what we think they were made for. And it's true, perhaps one of these robots will finally consider, what I was made for is to eradicate the human species. Every living person, except for one, Billie Eilish. Her they would retain as a kind of jester or Mozart. Okay. This one's Miley Cyrus, Flowers. No? Nothing? Okay, if you think about it, a boyfriend is a postnatal egg as well. In the recent past, Miley's boyfriend had an ovular function, cocooning her in the big spoon of regular flowers, writing her name in the sand, taking her dancing, holding her hand. When he left roses, useless except as a match for the pigment with which she'll paint her nails. When he left, the egg broke, yolk and plasma lining the dance floor where Miley slides, a new being, talking shit, but dancing so well. David told me he once took mushrooms spontaneously at a house party in San Francisco with a bunch of people. They were all high on mushrooms and playing instruments. He said that while he was playing some kind of rattle, he started thinking about the concept of terminal modification, described by Barbara Herrnstein Smith in her book Poetic Closure. So I haven't read this book, but I think what it means is like this. Like a poem will have like a certain like cadence or certain kind of a tempo or a rhythm or a refrain, and then right before the end, it'll like switch, and then everyone thinks it's really good. But I don't know for certain because I have not read this book. But then I thought, I think it's like, do you know the Willie Nelson song, Ain't It Funny How Time Slips Away? And in every chorus he sings, ain't it funny how time slips away? And then on the last chorus he sings, ain't it surprising how time slips away? So David was thinking that by applying when he was high on mushrooms, he was thinking that by applying terminal modification to the percussive sounds he was making, he could theoretically make a music that would never have to end. I thought that there was an irony later about that, about David invoking poetic closure to recognize a way to reject closure infinitely and indefinitely. I write to Claire that I've begun to perversely think about Lynn's concept of the rejection of closure as a metaphysical concept. I say perverse because Lynn was in some ways the most atheistic person I knew. When I told her that another David, not David, had become a Christian, she emitted the greatest eye roll. Like a swimmer doing a flip at the water's edge, or like a crouton turning over in a bowl of soup. Clive's brother Mark died almost exactly 1 month after Early was born. When he died, we all marveled that Mark had gone into one portal just as Early had emerged from his. When the doctor showed us the placental sac, which Allie birthed a few minutes after birthing Early, this big, purple, veiny, hazy, soft eggshell, I understood how psychedelic it is to be born. How psychedelic it is to be merged with your mother's body. That placenta wall is your view the whole time, the only thing you've ever seen. And then you emerge into bright white light, like Early came into the bright white light of Kaiser, Oakland. Whether death is psychedelic, I cannot tell you. I have not died, and I can't remember being born. Clive gave a talk. I keep saying Clive gave a talk at Mark's memorial. That's not the right way to put it. I realize that. But like a eulogy just means you say good things about someone, right? And Clive did that. And he said other things. Like he was mad at Mark. He was mad at Mark for not buying himself flowers, holding his own hand, loving himself better than you can, for instance. Ali was wearing Early in the ergo, leaning with his weight against the back wall of the church Clive's mom attends and where Mark sometimes went to find community. In Clive's talk, he said, "Life is the gift that death gives us." And he repeated it a few times. It got a little softer each time. Life is the gift that death gives us. I loved myself so well the other day. I bought myself flowers, wrote my name in the sand, talked to myself for hours, said shit you don't understand. And then I have these these really beautiful swim trunks. They're yellow, and they're covered with flowers. They're the ones I wear when I go into the pool for play. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. Early's face when he saw them broke open like a poppy. He really bloomed. He hollered, "Flowers! Flowers everywhere!" I appreciate you all listening. Thank you so much.
Whoa, thank you so much, Brandon. That was so wonderful. Okay, we don't have a break. No breaks. So we'll just proceed and introduce Laura. There's going to be a little bit of mic maneuvering because there are two heights here.
Go like this.
No, it's okay, I think. Or I'm wearing heels, but it's not enough. Okay, we'll be sharing this mic. So, Laura. We've been waiting for this moment, the moment Laura returns to the Poetry Project as a reader of her own work. The moment we get to host her, as she has so devotedly hosted countless other poets throughout her tenure here, invariably introducing their work with the same generous commitment, an act of critical clairvoyance that requires shedding whatever surplus ego one might have left by exchanging judgment for the possibility of having one's mind, and by extension, one's heart, changed by the work. Devotion, or being in service of, isn't a negation of self, but a continuous, at times exhausting, negotiation of it. Between lack and surplus, destruction and preservation, fear and risk, a working through of opposites that defines the very ethics of Laura's poetry, the voicing of her desire, a desire for the self to be for others. Over text, Will and I debate another kind of tension in Laura's work, the tension between line and sentence, what each enables her to do, the break that lineation introduces into an essay form where the impasses of a thinking process are deliberately crafted so that we can follow Laura as she maneuvers the folds of her own mind. Reading Laura is like sitting next to her as she's dangling her feet. She's so present, Will writes, like capital P present, like 2 wing beats away from getting too close to the sun, feeling the burn as she draws nearer and nearer to rendering in language what it actually feels like to feel. Quote, "It's not that we forgot about other times and people, it's that we truly felt them, all part of this, and then spatial metaphors made less sense, closer or away, further or back. It burned our fingers to touch, but we couldn't stop or be stopped."
Every sensation in Duval Shelley is singularly experienced by a body in time, while also prophetically haunted by other less mundane timelines organizing the relations between the living and the dead and the unborn and the living, spectral realms of existence and non-existence suffusing the collection. I was a morbid child, Laura writes. Her penchant for the Gothic, the monstrous, for horror, whether filmic or literary, is evident, though she also resists aesthetic closure. While genre lurks, Laura knows that death can't be satisfyingly personified. She is, above all, a poet of inquiry, a poet of bewilderment, someone who will follow a question to its logical dead end. Quote, Does not believing in one thing mean believing in another? Are trust and fate the same? If I'm known, can I be free? If I am unknown, am I free? She asks, grappling with aporia, while never surrendering to the fantastical for resolution, as that too would be unsatisfying. To speak to the dead, we must remain among the living, writing from that crepuscular edge. There's an assertive yet vanishing force there, the moment in which something or someone about to not be radiates with intensified life. It is this kind of totalizing energy that Laura captures in her writing, the sense that everything she writes includes everything she feels and thinks, or at least reaches for that, which is more than any paranormal activity could hope for.
To be a poet of inquiry, a poet of bewilderment, is also to be a poet of belief. I am not a believer, yet Laura has, without a shred of doubt, converted me to this church. The church of skeptic, the deviant, the unloved, the church of poetry. Through her, we become apostles of a message that is neither pre-written nor predetermined by fate. Quote, freedom remains the project, she writes, in proportion to the cost of all prior unfreedom, end of quote. Our liberation is both haunted and future-driven, like a demon of history or an angel of poetry. Please join us in welcoming our angel of poetry, Laura Henriksen, back to the Poetry Project.
Oh my God. I really I can't believe that just happened to me. Thank you so much, Mirren. Thank you, Will. Brandon, that was so beautiful. Thank you. I love these poems so much. I'm so excited for this book. Wow, I'm so overwhelmed I forgot my water bottle, which is not like me. I thank you so much for being here. It feels impossible to say how much of a dream this is, but it's just like every single part of this is a dream. Everything. I also want to say, because they'll be thinking about it the whole time if I don't, I'm not sick, and I can't even tell if my voice actually sounds weird, but I have allergies. So I'm just saying that because it sounds weird in my head, but it might not even. But that's what I'll be thinking about if I don't clarify it now. I'm going to start with a few poems from Yuval Shelley, and then switch to some newer work. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Every curse and every wish came true, just like she said they would. I tried to go, but here I am. I thought I was on a road until I looked down. In my heaven, all feelings are met and matched with equal intensity. All the angels either play guitar really well or not at all. And they're always with you, nodding in encouragement like, go on. It was in the name of love. It was in the name of science. It was then I saw I was crossing a distant bridge, all things unfixed. I listened to the same song over and over, testing my devotion, ready for all pleasure to buckle under need. I could sit on this hill and watch the trucks go by forever, all day. They say it'll be worth it, but I don't know what it is. Home is where the flower patterns blur into faces mouthing no future as you try to fall asleep. What was it you said? Destiny is what happened. But what if it didn't have to? All that singing, for what? Money changes everything. We take a break at work to show each other videos of our favorite live performances. I pick one in which Cyndi Lauper is suspended in a trash can over her adoring fans. Later that year, on a rocky beach, I suspiciously observe geese and ants and children who slap the water with their foam floaties. Who here is the best sleeper? When will I be transformed by the sublime? I did for a time try to be one of the guys, one of the debauched and pathetic guys. I drove to the desert at night, covered in a shroud of things to prove, carried by the waves made in the wake of a boat on a lake of fire. Pure of heart, spots of blue appearing on my wings like a duck, aimless and purposeful in equal measure and continuously, never tired or always. Sometimes in the purity of its excess, the bridge is my favorite part of a song. Other times, with a restraint approaching cruelty, I love when a singer sings the chorus only once and then lets it drop and never sings it again. He was my king of inner turmoil. I sat on his knee like a scab. Suddenly, I remember something I've got that's going to take forever to get over. Many people are doing nothing, doing whatever they are doing now. I have my own reservations, lips that curl around your sympathy. She poured from the vessel with such feeling. The liquid promised a tower for my questions as I tripped on the stairs going up to his room. You can have anything you want, but only in nugget form. I can climb a hill or pursue a point. Having never before seen such a rock formation, I thought it some strange trash heap or bush in the moonlight. So precious, I must toss it, you silly goose. I want it, but if it were mine, would I be bored? Like those stories where you get a cursed object, say a doll or watch or locket, and the only way to rid yourself of its lurking doom is to pass it on to someone else. Isn't that a pickle? A real hot potato? But they just send it on to someone they dislike, and suddenly it's back in your possession, and you just pass it back and forth for the next 30 or 40 years between garages and rented storage units, and wonder if what you feel is love or another pain, and wonder if when relief comes, it will feel like relief or another emptiness to fill, like a dog in a boat afraid of the water. How do people survive? An error in the prophecy, like a ring in a fish. I believed spring would come, and in it I would find my better heart. I wanted sugar, dyed and molded into dusty femurs, to wander the antique store of her former lover, now disgraced, more time, and a baby. It was all there in the document, but I couldn't read a word. How do people survive? Some are theologians, some don't. My sister texts me in the morning. She was talking to a friend from college who said that any woman's effort to achieve normative beauty standards is bad for all women, since by comparison it makes the women who resist that pressure look even more ugly, old, and fat. She wanted to know if I agreed. I said, I don't know, but it begs the question, ugly, old, and fat. A fear can be a bridge. An egg can symbolize redemption, wealth, possibility, impermanence. How do people survive? My students are worried about whether or not I'm gay. I'm worried about so many things. I tell them good writing should be stupid, but I don't know how to expand on this lesson without talking about sex, so we are at an impasse to the side of learning. I say in his life, Baudelaire knew love as well as debt. How do people survive? I see myself encircled in a ritual I don't understand. I'm responsible for something, but my hands are tied. My failure here is prolonged, erotic, lifted. Try drawing a horse from memory. Pretend you are someone else and send an email. If it happened before, it will happen again, said the axe with an air of melancholy. If I am known, can I be free? If I am unknown, am I free? People sometimes like to say that nobody really knows anybody, not really. Sometimes people like to say that nobody ever changes, not really. Absolute bullshit on all counts, I say to those people, while changing constantly, while being knowable, known by many, surprising every day, recognizable just the same. Leaves make shadows on the ground where later they will lay. When my friend leans against me, I am glad I am here to be leaned against. Death waits for me like a present that will one day open my life. Near the end of our 7 minutes in heaven, the swamp monster asks me if I believe in miracles. I see I'm far from the desert now, lived through that, up to the frayed denim edges of its cut-off sleeves. I see the time has come, tie on my shark fin, never been better, more easy or free. God gives you what you can handle. I spent a week in California and heard Dust in the Wind so many times I felt I was being followed. On the radio, playing in another car across a strip mall parking lot, on TV, in a Stephen King movie, brought up by a high school kid to his teacher who is distracted from the conversation by the bullies from his own adolescence that have returned to haunt him for reasons I never learned because I missed the end of the movie. It's by Boston, or America, or Bread, I'm not sure. Later, I learn it's by Kansas. I'm tired but can't sleep. I'm trying to remember the hero's journey. I'm trying to remember how it ends, who lives, who goes home. I think it's no one. The quilt slips off the edge of the bed, square by square. All we are, he's singing, but I don't know. Is that really everything? Sometimes I love something so much I won't even look at it. My understanding of permanence. Every year on the anniversary, a rose appears on the spot and no one knows who put it there. Tonight you're mine is such a sad thing to say because each night is so likely to end and to leave no trace but useless feeling, and what was mine will be no more. Do you remember the beautiful faux bois tables and chairs at Wendy's? Tables and chairs which were part of one piece as knees to thighs, like picnic tables in public parks, something I assume was a part of a larger strategy for discipline and control. Or maybe that was somewhere else. Someone sings with the prettiest voice that it's too late to cry now, but I can cry whenever. I called to say it remains my favorite from the basement where I sit and listen to the synthesizers of the damned. To get off the phone, I say, now I guess I should let you go. And I'm going to switch over now to a new series of poems that I've been working on that's called What Are You Afraid Of? If it happened, did someone let it happen? If it happened, will it always have? I don't know anything unless someone showed it to me, and no one showed me anything for no reason. I think, yes, it will always have happened, and so while freedom remains the project, to be free will be transformed in proportion to the cost of all prior unfreedom, where debt is not always a burden, any more than love is a burden only. Thick, sharp drop, that I've left people lonely, reason and logic, that it is already too late before it started too late, the boat that will one day take my love on board, and stupid I will wave. That is not singing, that is history. A blue light shades the wall. From defeat I begin all over, a source of terror when what I had wanted was to be terror's barrier. Pursued by her tears, her only comfort, my only song. Videotapes arrive at your house. You put them in the VCR. The snow clears and you see the exterior of your house, the door behind which you currently stand, sit, crouch, or lean, watching the tape. You are the husband or the wife. Confirmation of a bad feeling that you have never been alone. Since childhood, you have participated in the histories of cruelty. Because of your love, you have something to lose, and because of your crimes, you are going to lose it. There's a big wheel turning in my stomach. On the path to the funeral, sticky pink spill. Will I join the other parents when directed? All theater nursed. Bets placed on byproducts, some muttering phantom, infelicitous, sheltered, adequate to being loved, a world not fit for children from which children cannot escape, in old age no tenderness, in heat no great guide. Fear eats itself. In the mistake, the origins of the mistake, what did not happen or was prescribed too late or simply ignored or already happened, and so what perdures? What choice did she have before, during, after her crossing from life that can be recognized as living? I worked for the billionaire mayor, answering phones. I liked my stylish manager. She went to a conference in Denver, Colorado, and came back inspired by a thought experiment she couldn't wait to discuss as a staff. What if you could alleviate all suffering and all torment, save every life, and all you had to do was lock one person in a cage forever? The torture of this person was more detailed, but I forget. Such a difficult choice, it was agreed. Meanwhile, I seethed and wondered peripherally if my youth prevented me from recognizing some complexity in the story, or if it protected me from cynical pragmatism. Now my youth is behind me, and so I know it wasn't age that allowed for torture to be entertained, an exercise, a game, fantasy, impossible ideal. Waste traveling downriver, what angel waits for you? A different kind of guard for neither vault nor prison, spiritual advisor with eyes that lift towards sound. I'm needing you, please help me in my cause. Decaying enclosure, forget it. Struck by water and so now wet. Fundamental instability, unmet on vacation, poisoned by a vision, pursued by dualism, cowardly, nature-dyed uniform. You hold it now, but it will drop from your hand. When war is her teacher, what does the girl learn? Drops from the hook, splashes, starts, moans homewardly. My husband, my baby, and I are in the waiting room at the vet because our cat has stopped eating. In a few hours, she will be dead, we will soon learn. Across the street, ads for products to protect your brain from cell phones. There are channels now dedicated to one show, looped episode to episode, all day and night, useless with neither chronology nor progression. In the waiting room, such a channel played endless Fear Factor. It was a special installment in which all contestants were twins. First, twins dropped each other from a helicopter into a lake. The objective was not clear, but the second challenge was unambiguous. One twin gnawed, this is gross, I'm sorry. One twin gnawed the meat from a cow's preserved body, and then they swam in a trench thick with organs and blood, still holding the meat in their mouth. On the other side, a juicer awaited, and into it they spat the meat, fed it through the metal grinder, slowly filling a cup. They repeated this rite as many times as it took to fill the cup completely, and then their twin drank the juice. I asked the man at the desk if we could please turn off Fear Factor. And he did, offering the remote to us to pick something new, which we didn't do. Called back from waiting, the vet explained that all her systems were shutting down, which meant our cat was dying already. My baby laughed and smiled because these words to her were music. The vet's expression, another beautiful face for a baby to look at and feel inescapable joy. Doubt is what allows a single gesture to have a heart. That's a Fanny Howe quote. Out looking for your friends, once embarrassing. At what point will courage erupt instead of fury or alongside fury? A wound's fingers reach. Crouching, he calls for his mother. Miles away, she hears him clearly. Wind carries its smoke beyond the fire's line of sight. What ash consecrates the exile's fate, the child cradled, her living son. Her son is alive. Categories of disaster, stylized cruelty, accidents, marketed, arrested, dined. I don't mean to minimize anger's importance, I tell her, or the significance of being born and raised. Use it as a vehicle to be the judge. Very bright, very loud, very fragrant. No easy way to avoid the skeleton's sharpness. Very slow utopia, very little money. Made more beautiful by her knowledge of architectural history on the tour. Who named you? You don't belong to. Someone caught a fish on the pier where I thought no one caught fish. I felt upset even after he threw it back. It was a celebration of abominable freedom. I was not yet afraid, but ahead of me was a fear so profound its transformation in advance I could not conceive. We walked home on 4th Avenue. We saw a movie about adolescent violence and love with fucked gender politics and great performances. It conveyed a lot about living here. What can you escape? Can you escape a trap you didn't realize you were in? Can you only escape into the next trap, a bigger trap? I vomited repeatedly. I met a lot of people quickly who were very different from me, but that difference felt less significant than it might have as our purposes intersected and diverged. Finally, it was possible to be nowhere, but the relief that provided was hard to measure. I gave up quickly and felt insane and later very ashamed, and for a long time I'd cry about it. It became a story I wanted to tell, but when I tried, I started lying immediately, which surprised me because I had such a will to speak it, such a need for listeners. I gathered friends to tell them, individually and in groups. I don't know what they expected me to say, or if I said it, I met with strangers on the internet and cried, and other people cried too. I said, I am afraid. What are you afraid of? They asked. I don't know, I lied. I couldn't remember some things, important things like what she looked like when I first saw her, but I remembered what I ate when I ate again, although I don't remember that anymore. We paid extra to be alone because it was all expensive anyway. Everything was organized in 3-hour increments and then into smaller units within those increments. She said I wasn't trying hard enough, and I lost forever the capacity to understand effort. I was nowhere, a few blocks away from where the man caught the fish and threw it back. I was offered ceremonial chocolate but didn't have time to eat it. I was lost completely and did everything wrong. There was no golden light, there was no temperature. Although the fact of my breaking a fever did become consequential later. I did die, of course I did. And then a friendly stranger asked me about generative AI in the classroom. I was slightly behind in discovering important shifts had occurred. I made those discoveries through auditory evidence that arrived to me from across a plane of nausea and blood behind a sheet, crying, for example, and then Morgan saying, hello. My willingness to be afraid, in part psychic preparation. What would I do if no one believed me about the threats that beset me? All the events of my life inside a grave's throat mid-swallow. My wish to be consoled, that she will never cease crying, that her tears will destroy the wrong parts of me, that she is right and I am not, that I am betraying or failing our future living, that she could have been born far away from me. I read that the bombs over Gaza City tonight were so loud that people in Tel Aviv needed to be reassured the sound was okay, that nothing was falling on them. Events for embellishing a nightmare, my participation in school, how long it took me to learn evil is real, a game, a passing vehicle, how long it took me to learn evil is real. Doubt has not been without utility, even if a kind of chronic distraction, occluding the obvious, so this behavior can be explained, so what? Brings to mind some nocturne, your formative encounters scraping dust from a cliff. I was so disturbed by their reaction to total when we said in total solidarity. What contingencies did they feel we failed to account for? The tender feelings of liberals. I must let it unfold bit by bit, like the rash which began on my wrist that I first noticed in an organizing meeting focused on advancing the Palestinian cultural and academic boycott of Israel across our various affiliations. I was pregnant and allergic to something I don't know. It was a mystery. By that evening, the rash reached all parts of my body, but remained concentrated in my trunk and face and stayed that way for weeks. In this state, I was compelled to attend a different meeting, a community meeting, convened under duress. People I considered prior to these unfoldings my friends were angry because my coworkers and I had not equivocated in our condemnation of Israel's genocide and in our demand for Palestinian freedom. Were we excusing or justifying violence? Were we calling for further violence? They suggested we failed to understand the complexity, that we left behind our community because there was not consensus on the left, that we were being political when it was not our turn, when our focus was supposed to be what? Poetry. I understood because it was obvious what they actually meant, that they felt we had exceeded the permissible limit by speaking of Palestine. They felt threatened and were offended that their threatened feeling was not our central concern. Nauseated and burning in a rectory basement, I saw their fear and despised them, and still do. I'm a weak person. I experience certainty only in flashes so bright and eclipses opposite, and only ever when I am regarding hate or love. Ferocious, deathless, what accumulates under the snake's rolling belly, awake, traveling rapidly, the world it pretends, the world soon to be here, impermissible or not. How I experience dread, how she experiences dread, an experience of communal dread, not knowing what is signaled by that beeping. You are not understood, you are in the wrong place, you did not understand. What other animals fear loneliness? Cows, wild dogs, whales, termites. Unnecessary proof, not a name. Many possible reactions to the horizon's drip. How dangerous I become when I feel responsible. I have something to protect when I become surroundings. Is there a more appropriate goal? Life goes on in some ways, your veins change. In some ways, the biggest difference is that I can no longer want to disappear. How a voice rots, placement of blame, incremental adjustment, papers on the surface of a desk before the house explodes. I have misused the concept of vulnerability. I have inadequately considered the use of weakness, its manipulation, strategic potential, performance, relics, saints, hush, the thief, and what becomes of her. Please lift me like an interesting rock. A midpoint between unknown locations will not be recognized a midpoint. This one day, I felt calm, and I didn't know why. I recognized what was happening and that I would not forget it, nor would I be able to replicate it since I had no clue why it was happening, why I felt calm and wasn't afraid. My pastor's sister gave horseback riding lessons at a stable not far from our house. She did not attend our church, although pale and dark-haired, she looked like her brother, whose name was Chris, who lost his job because he had an affair. Our church folded in shame without achieving its fundraising goal to move out of a middle school gym. Like many girls, I loved horses. For a short while, my parents brought me on Saturdays to the stable for lessons. I rode in large circles in a shadowy interior, the sun outside a screen. After a few weeks, she said it was time to canter, and this is when I learned of a fear of speed. I was powerless and small on a body hardly beginning to exert itself, circling and circling. The negotiations of control is an illusion most of the time, since you have nothing of value to negotiate with. You make yourself dizzy, you barely hold on. We returned the following Saturday, and as if banished by my dread or repulsed by my cowardice, the sister whose name I forget was not there, nor were the horses. The stable was empty. We returned to the car as if that were that. Once I thought to despise beauty as a barrier to my freedom. Rattling sounds, crackling sounds, possibly imagined sounds beyond the door. Do you love it? Will you always? Now I am not sure. I return and dial the number from earlier. The longing I feel like a gutter. I cautiously run beside. Thank you so much.
Wow, it was incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Laura. Yeah, I have no words. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Courtney, for your introduction. Thank you also to the Poetry Project staff working tonight, which is all the staff besides Roberto, Kay, Will, Nicole, Heather, Anna, our volunteers, as well as the techs working tonight, James and Gary. Thank you. And thank you all for coming, and please come back to the Poetry Project.